Welcome back to the Just Fantasy Baseball podcast. My name is Rami, Lavi. That is Vince Damato, and we have a great show for you today. As always, Vince, happy Sunday. How you doing?
Life's good. Hoping to get out and get some sunshine this afternoon. So it's late summer. Baseball's finally kicking into playoff mode, it feels like.
You got the
Fantasy
hoodie on and
football
everything.
starting. Yeah, I know I do. It's a little, I like to keep my air on. I don't know about you, but I like to keep it cold in my house. And
Same. Trust me, I love to keep it freezing. The problem is these units are so loud though that I turn it off when I'm doing the podcast. So I don't even turn it off, but I just turn it up so it's not like on the entire time. I don't know if people hear it in the background or not, but like these like air conditioning units are super loud. Anyway, that's besides the point. I want to start here. I have something interesting because I had some stats for you. We talked about this, but Shohei Ohtani reached the 40-40 mark over the weekend. He did it with a walk-off grand slam. And then, of course, he also got his 41st home run. So that's stat number one. We'll talk about that in a second. Aaron Judge, over his last 100 games, has 45 home runs, 24 doubles, 84 walks, 106 RBIs, 93 runs, a 379 batting average, a 505 on base, 835 slugging, which is a 1340 OPS. That's only in his last 100 games. It's insane what these two people are doing. And oh, by the way, Shohei Ohtani is doing this while rehabbing from Tommy John surgery as a pitcher. He actually threw a bullpen session yesterday. We oftentimes, specifically in baseball, romanticize the past and the players of the past, and it's good to honor the league and the sports history. I get that. What these two guys are doing right now, this year in 2024, is once in a lifetime type stuff, once in a lifetime type athletes that we're never going to see again. And sit back and awe and appreciate what you're watching.
I love that you brought all of that up too. I mean, it was awesome to watch that grand slam. And I also turned on the game last night. And this is why baseball is so beautiful, right? You have Shohei who enters the 40-40 club. And then the next night, or I don't know if it's the next night. Yeah. You have Junior Caminero, a fresh young face rookie, hit a game tying home run in the bottom of the ninth. And so it's just, you're absolutely right when you say, this is history in the making, right? And I think you're right when you say we like to romanticize or, put the older guys or some of the historical figures on a pedestal. But this is history. I mean, this is some of the biggest history that we've seen in quite some time, and from two different players, nonetheless. I mean, Judge's 60 home run season was pretty phenomenal, but this feels almost bigger in a way, just as far as extending beyond baseball standpoint.
His season this year might be better than the year he hit 60, which is crazy. It probably is overall. And if he could get back to that number, which he's on pace again for 62. Now, only one guy ever hits 60 multiple times in a season. So this would be the second player ever. And I have a little spiel about that, but I'll get to that a little bit later. You'll see why. Have you seen Michael Kopech's numbers with the Dodgers?
It's kind of funny. I like to see him. Because the White Sox didn't know how to do it. What has he got? A .79? I think he gave up a run just yesterday.
Did he give up a run yesterday?
Yeah,
so I guess this is going into yesterday. It was 10 1/3, 1 hit, 1 walk, and 15 strikeouts with zero ERA. Unreal.
Yeah, I mean, even with the 1 run, it's still .79. So yeah, it's been phenomenal. I love it. I love when guys leave the White Sox and then do better. I could see Eloy doing a little better, right?
That would be nice. Dom Smith signed with Cincinnati, so I guess Cincinnati said we'll just take anyone who's like a borderline major leaguer and just put them on our roster and figure it out. They're not going to play any of them anyway, but I thought that was funny when we talked about like the Cincinnati signings. One more thing before two more things, I guess. So let's get to David Peterson. Has been one of the best starting pitchers in baseball this year. In 85 innings this year, he's 8-1 with a 2.85 ERA, 66 strikeouts, and 37 walks. Strikeout and walk numbers are not great, but I mean, 8-1 with 2.85. You can't really argue with those numbers. And when you watch him pitch, he's not one of these pitchers that's blowing you away. He's like a crafty, old school kind of left-handed pitcher who, almost like Jordan Montgomery, surgical, figures out a way to get you out. And I think that's really cool.
This one does kind of hurt me a little bit. I'm sad that you brought him up because I had been holding on to David Peterson for probably 2 seasons before, through a lot of his injury and struggles on the mound, and because I believed in him. And it came to a point this season where I had a big roster crunch, and he unfortunately didn't make the cut. His first, few starts didn't go well. And so I'm like, you know what? I've been holding on to you for too long. And of course, now that I've dropped him, he can finally go and play well. And he's on one of my competitors' teams, unfortunately. So yes, you're absolutely right. David Peterson has been phenomenal, but some salt in that wound for me a little bit. He's lined up to face the Sox next week too, so he could be available. If he's available in your league, go get him.
Yes, if he is, go pick him up. Hopefully, no one picked in my league, obviously, with all the Mets fans in my league, he's picked up. The last thing is kind of a frustrating one. It's somebody that I talked about being great, and I thought this trade was really going to help him because he'd be on a good team. But the problem is he's not playing, and he's not doing well in a limited, part-time player role, and that's Lane Thomas. His value to me is diminished to almost nothing. In the last month, he's batting .261, 0 home runs, 3 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, only 10 runs scored. This is a guy who had 28 home runs last year and had 20 stolen bases. He only has 8 home runs on the year. And the problem is in that last month, he only has 76 at-bats. Like he's a part-time player for Cleveland. He barely ever starts. I don't even think, maybe he gets hot and he earns more playing time, but I don't think Lane Thomas, a guy who I think coming into the year, and not only coming into the year, but the last few months, I thought it was a really good, right when he got traded, I thought it would be a really, really good addition and would get a nice bump. He's been unrosterable. He's been a nothing for the last month or so. So Lane Thomas, it just kind of sucks.
Yeah, he's one I'm in the same boat as you where I thought, especially coming into the year, that he was going to be a sneaky good ROI, but doesn't seem like it's panned out. I will say, new city, right, with Cleveland, he's finally on a competitive team for the first time in who knows how long. So I'm willing to maybe give him some of a break. I still think highly of him, and I think next year's draft, he could be a guy that I'd be targeting. But it has been kind of sad to watch. On the bright side, he's still got 29 stolen bases, but I don't think we expected 28 home runs again. But I was hoping for at least 20 home runs and a better average nonetheless. And so it's kind of been it's been a disappointing season for Lane Thomas, that's for sure.
It's interesting. I would say also next year, maybe he's a sleeper going into the draft. I don't think this is the end of the book on Lane Thomas. I just think for his current situation this year, maybe it doesn't happen. And part of the reason why, and as we get into our waiver wire pickups, is one guy named John Kenzie or whatever his name is, John Kenzie Noel, who's been playing some outfield for Cleveland. Big dude. I mean, I don't know if you've seen him rumbling around out there. Big dude. He's also got first and third base eligibility. And if he's still unrostered in your league, go pick him up because over the last couple of weeks, he's got 5 home runs and a .421 on base in the last 2 weeks. This dude is raking. And the more he hits, the more playing time Cleveland is giving him. And they're taking it right away from the guys. Josh Naylor, who we talked about, struggling. Maybe put him at DH a little bit, move Jose Ramirez, get him some DH days and put Noel at third, throw Noel in the outfield, and Lane Thomas is losing days. So he's, versatile enough to get a lot of playing time. And as long as he's hitting, they're going to keep trying to find spots for him in the lineup. I would go roster him as soon as you can.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I can't remember. I was trying to find it, but I can't remember if I had talked about Noel when he first came up. But
I think you did. You did.
Yeah, he's a big, we know he's a big power dude, and he's going to run some hot streaks. And the reason, I watched him recently because he torched the Cubs for 3 home runs in a weekend series where Cleveland swept the Cubs. So I've seen it in the last 10 games. I can count real quick: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 home runs in the last 10 days. So Noel's just been on fire. The Profile
I think
seems
it's
to be
5 in the last
translating.
7 days, actually, but
Hmm,
yeah.
good for him. Phenomenal. My waiver wire pickup, my first one is don't know if it's been officially announced yet, but Dylan Cruz looks like he is going to get a call up for the Washington Nationals. I'm not going to go crazy for my fab, but young, exciting. When he was drafted, it's like potential superstar here. Um, I would be I wrote down I'll be playing hot potato, which is kind of one of those things. I'm going to pick him up, right? Because he's got this great potential. But if it doesn't work out right away, I mean right away, because this is crunch time, right? If he goes out next week and struggles, I'm not going to hold on to him. But he's certainly a guy worth adding. In just 49 AAA games, he had 8 home runs, 10 stolen bases, 265 average, 340 on base. Um, in a few years, a potential star. Again, he was thought of with the likes of Wyatt Langford and Jackson Churio, like top prospects in the game just this time last year. So we'll see how it kind of translates when he comes up, but it looks like he's going to come up. I would definitely be looking to add him.
So let's go there actually for a second. Let's talk about one of your guys who's a young guy who's coming up and finally maybe found a home in Toronto. That's Joey Loperfido.
You took him. I had him. Go ahead.
Of course you did. That's why I went there first, because I was like, oh, he's because
Yep.
I have 2 more that are kind
Okay.
of
Yeah.
on the edge. But
Sure.
Joey Loperfido, 500 on base in the last week, 2 home runs, 3 RBIs, 5 runs scored. And that's your guy. And you know what? Maybe it's weird. Houston's on a run. The team's good. It's a great lineup now, but it wasn't working for him there. He gets traded to Toronto, and something's clicking for him right now. So I'd ride the wave while he's hot, because we know this is a guy who, you know, is expected to be a great Major League Baseball player. And so, sometimes might take a minute to click in the major leagues. It's clicking for him. I mean, we saw the same thing with Jackson Holiday, right? He sucked this first time up. They sent him down. He comes back. Granted, he struggled a little bit lately, but it clicked like right when he came back. So, sometimes we see that with young players, and kind of Jackson Holiday again. You see, he's hot and cold. It's a seesaw a little bit, a little bit of a roller coaster. Ride the Loperfido roller coaster while he's hot.
Yeah, I agree with that. He's only 31% rostered in Fantrax, so certainly some potential availability there. And the thing that I like that he wasn't really getting much of in Houston is he's sitting at the top of the order, right? He's sitting second.
Yep.
So plenty of run scoring potential. I loved him in Houston, but now that, he's on Toronto and playing time's not really as much of an issue, and it seems like he's settling in. This could be a little bit of the breakout that we thought was going to happen with Houston. That, it's tough. Think about his situation, like not playing every day and not having much room for error, right? I mean, that's a World Series contending team year in and year out. And,
Yep.
No offense to Toronto. Toronto, I thought, I think has similar vibes to it, but Loperfido, now that he's playing every day, I think he's settling in, and absolutely think that he's going to keep doing it.
Did you have anyone else for your waiver wire pickups?
No, that
All right.
was it.
So I have 2 bubble guys that I kind of like, also both your guys, and you'll understand in a second. And that is PCA, Crow-Armstrong, also another guy who's starting to pick it up of late. I don't know if you know his numbers off the top of your head, but I'll share them with you. He's not playing a ton still. Still would like to see more at bats, but in the last week, 409 on base, 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, 4 runs scored. No stolen bases, which a little rough. He's got 23 on the year, though, and a little bit of the power surge in the last couple of weeks. 4 home runs in the last 2 weeks. So maybe PCA, also young guy, starting to put it together a little bit more. And the other guy who's kind of your guy, Jorge Lopez. I've been in on him all year. It looks like the Cubs have found a closer. And so if you need some saves, he's going to, it seems like, get the majority of the save opportunities for the Chicago Cubs. I always believed in this guy from the moment I saw him throw that glove over the netting at Citi Field. I was like, that's my guy. I watched him up close and personal when I worked in Baltimore, and I got to see him, and that was obviously probably his best year. But I do think also, once he straightens some things out, personally he was going to be back to the level of reliever that he was capable of. And with the Chicago bullpen in flux the way it was, I thought he really had a chance at getting a lot of save opportunities. And it seems like that opportunity is there for him. So again, ride it while it's hot, while he's still getting those opportunities, because saves don't grow on trees at this point in the season. You can really find some saves there.
Yeah, I will say him and Jorge Lopez and Porter Hodge too is another one that's been getting a couple cracks at it. I mean, it's the Cubs bullpen is really strange. I don't quite know what to make of it because,
well, you mentioned it's been great since in the second half, right?
It has, and that's what's weird to me. So the Cubs, I think about Mark Leiter Jr. is another one that they, he had a lot of success with the Cubs, or Adbert Alzolay. They have a lot of success, but you look at the first half of the season and it was abysmal. It's just so hot and cold. And I absolutely agree with you, though. This feels like one of those hotter moments now that Neris is out of the picture. I think Lopez and Porter Hodge absolutely could be next 1-2 punch back there in the bullpen. And they just somehow, I don't know what they do or how they do it, but they somehow find these, high leverage, high opportunity guys, and, it pays off. So I think that's a good call.
All right. I got a pitcher to stream for you this week. I got two of them, but we'll start with Bradley Blaylock. He's making the start on Thursday against the Miami Marlins. And the reason why I love this is because I don't know if you saw, but yesterday, despite his numbers actually being pretty poor, he shut the Yankees offense down. And if you can shut the Yankee offense down, and I know the Yankee offense, I've complained about it plenty. It's hot and cold. And they should have scored a lot more runs against him. In 5 1/3 innings, he gave up 4 walks and 5 hits. The fact that they only scored 2 runs is crazy. But on the plus side, he limited the damage, right? He gave up all those 9 base runners, had 5 strikeouts, and still only gave up 2 runs in 5 1/3 innings. Went into the 6th against the Yankees. His ERA on the year is now 3.06, and I think 4 starts. So this kid, 4 games, 17 2/3 innings, 11 strikeouts. The whip, like I said, pretty high, not great, not where you want it, 1.4, but the ERA at 3.06. It's Miami. He's going to be better against Miami than he was against the Yankees. I'll tell you that. And so that's a good opportunity. Roster him, start him against Miami, cut him the next day.
All right. Yeah, I like it. I don't know if you saw this news, because I'm not sure if it's been officially announced yet, but for my streaming pick, I am going to take the Jack Leiter.
Ooh, I did see this. I saw he was trending.
He looks like he may be making the start on Wednesday. So go grab him ASAP. He may already be grabbed by the time you're listening to this. I went and grabbed him in my league this morning. This is all according to Fantrax and maybe some other, at least my notes are, but there's definitely other outlets on Twitter, X, that are pushing this narrative too. It looks like he could be a potential starter for Wednesday when they play the Chicago White Sox. Scherzer's not going to be able to make the start. Dunning's velo was down. So if you look at Leiter, I mean, especially in his last 9 starts in AAA, 42 innings pitched, 2.57 ERA, and 63 strikeouts to 18 walks. Leiter's been, we know the type of pedigree that he has. Is this, a potential? I thought about throwing him in my waiver wire section, but if he comes up and struggles against the White Sox, or even doesn't look, good, he may be a drop for me. But at the same time, I'm going to take him against the White Sox. How I said last time, I'm starting anyone with a pulse against the White Sox, and Jack Leiter certainly has a pulse. I'm not going to pay attention to the fact that he came up and really struggled in May or whatever that was. I don't care about that. I could care less. Jack Leiter is a great pitcher. He's stayed healthy finally. And, now that he's coming up against the softest landing spot you could possibly ask for, give it to me. I could not care less about any of the past stuff, his last MLB stint, I should say. But Jack Leiter, go grab him.
I will, and I want to, but I'm streaming a pitcher today who I really like, and I don't want to drop him in order to add Jack Leiter. So hopefully he's still around by the end of the day today. I have that kid, Bio Brisky, who's pitching for the Tigers today. He's starting, and he's going against who the hell are they facing? They're facing the White Sox, obviously. Duh.
Yeah, right.
Why would I stream a guy named Bio Brisky?
Unless it
If
was
he
against the
was
White Sox, yeah.
exactly, and we'll see what happens.
Sure.
But the point is, I'm gonna hold off, and hopefully, at the end of the day, when this kid pitches, I will dump him and I will add Jack Leiter and I will have him for next week. So I appreciate that. Now, this one's kind of a nostalgia pick. I love this pick. But he's back in the majors, made one start with the Angels, and he's also got a really soft landing spot against the aforementioned Detroit Tigers on Tuesday, and that's Johnny Cueto. His first start in the majors in like forever, and he actually looks solid. He got a standing ovation walking off in KC. I know there's a little sentiment there, but like you thought he'd pitch like 3 innings. No, he pitched like into the 6th or something like that. I forget what the exact numbers were. He wasn't bad. He wasn't great, but he wasn't terrible. Soft-ish landing spot. Detroit, game 2, big ballpark out there in Detroit. I don't know. This is a guy who throughout his big league career, he knows how to pitch, 6 1/3 innings, 1 strikeout. Oof, yikes.
Yeah. Kansas City's not they're not a rollover team either.
But the point is, he pitched, he gave up 8 hits, but he only gave up that one, he gave up 3 earned runs, but 6 1/3 innings.
It's a quality start. I'll take it.
It's a quality freaking start for my man Johnny Cueto, making his way back to the bigs. So I like him against Detroit this week.
Yeah, I think that's a fine call. Not much strikeout upside, but certainly
hey, we're trying to
like
find any positive upside we can find. And he's going to face Javi Baez 3 times or twice at least. So there's 2 strikeouts automatically.
And I like that your picks have been a little bit deeper finds, guys that
I'm trying to do that because I
Mhm.
think in the past I've found guys that like are not even streamers. They're almost like waiver pickups the last couple of weeks. And so I'm trying to find the deeper cuts that like, hey, everyone's rostered at this point in the season. The cat's out of the bag on everyone. You're not surprising anyone. You got to find these deeper pitches. Sometimes you need what was the guy I just mentioned who I'm starting to get today against a Brio Brisky,
Makes me think of Jaquan Brisker. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even think I'm pronouncing his name right.
My second streamer.
It's shocking, but
my second streamer. I only have 2, by the way. I don't know if you have another one, but
same. I have 2 as well.
My second one is a pitcher for the Baltimore Orioles, Albert Suarez, who has had some success this year. He's also had some struggles, but he will be pitching on Friday in Coors, which is probably the only negative, right? I mean, if they were in Baltimore against Colorado, you'd definitely feel better about that. It is in Coors, not crazy about that. But if you get to Friday and you're like, I could use a couple extra innings, I think Suarez makes more than enough sense. You look at his last 4 starts against Houston, Boston, Tampa Bay, and Toronto, all very solid teams. 23 innings, 2 earned runs, and those were both in his last start against Houston. 20 strikeouts to 5 walks. There's not a whole lot of huge strikeout upside. Maybe you get a strikeout an inning, but certainly upside for ratios here. And again, yes, it's Coors, but it's also Colorado. So maybe those kind of balance out. And Suarez is likely available, right? I mean, 30%, 39% rostered, likely available. I'm going to take a gamble if I need some extra innings on Albert Suarez this week.
Breaking news.
Uh-oh.
Breaking news. Paul Blackburn was put on the 15-day IL by the Mets with a hand contusion.
Does that mean Brandon Sproat's going to get a call?
No, the call has gone to Hosker Brauzoban, who they just sent down.
Hosker,
yeah, who they just sent down to bring back Daniel Nunez, which I actually predicted on our show on Friday right before it happened. I was working the afternoon show with Evan and Tiki on WFAN, and I said to Evan, well, I think the reason why they hung him out to dry in the 9th inning of their game against San Diego on Thursday night was because they were just sending him down automatically for Daniel Nunez anyway. It's funny, they actually pitched 3 guys in that game. All 3 were probably the 3 guys that one of them was going to go down, and for Nunez when he came back up, Nunez was fantastic for them out of the bullpen. Again, this is all not fantasy stuff, but the point is, Blackburn could have been a fantasy starter. He actually had a couple of good starts with the Mets, a couple of poor starts with the Mets. So, most recent one was the poor start, and now he is sent down. All right, MVP of the week. You got an MVP for us?
I do. My MVP of the week is not a guy who I would have thought was ever going to be an MVP, especially with the start of this year and most of this year. And this is, again, just a pick that I enjoy. He is not the best player over the last week or whatever, but Miguel Amaya has been very, very good. He's actually been the 7th best fantasy player over the last week, right behind Ellie De La Cruz. So does that mean that Miguel Amaya is going to be better than Ellie? I think probably. Just, throwing that out there. He's been great. Amaya slashing over the last week, 444, 474, 833. That's a 1307 OPS. And we've been wondering as Cubs fans for a long time who the next, catcher of the future is going to be. Are we going to get another Wilson type? Or are we going to cycle through more Jan Gomes and Tucker Barnharts and, those guys of the world? Amaya has finally given me hope that, there can be a catcher of the future. He's certainly put together a great August, and maybe we're here, right? I mean, there was some prospect pedigree coming into the season. I hope that this is it. I hope that he's finally able to start turning it around, and because I saw that the Cubs were in on Logan O'Hoppe, so clearly they want someone back there long term, and maybe Amaya can be the guy. So he's my MVP of the week.
You talk about the catcher production. So my honorable mention is Yainer Diaz because 414 on base, 3 home runs, 3 RBIs, 6 runs scored in a position that we're not getting anything from. But he can only be an honorable mention because how can I give this to anyone but Aaron Judge? I mean, I'm just going to, and look, maybe I'm the ultimate mush because I've been talking about, I feel like I haven't been talking enough about how great he's been. Because I know a couple weeks and months ago, I was talking about trading him because the injury risk. And even last week, I was like, well, pitchers aren't really going to pitch to him. It doesn't matter. When they do pitch to him, which is once a game, he hits a home run. It's ridiculous. They don't pitch to him, but the one time per game that they pitch to him, he hits the ball out. That's literally it. And I don't know if you saw Mariano Rivera was in the booth with them yesterday, and they asked him, like, what would you do? What would you throw to Aaron Judge? It's like, I just throw it over the middle and just pray he hits it at someone because I'm not picking a fight with him. I'm just going to try and throw my cutter over the middle and pray he hits it at someone because I can't beat him. There's no game plan. He's got a 462 on base in the last week, 528 in the last 2 weeks, which is ridiculous. 528 on base. He's a 500 on base, by the way, in the last 100 games. So that means 50% of the time he's getting on. He's got 5 home runs, 8 RBIs, 6 runs scored in the last week. I mean, it's stupid. And this is the point I wanted to bring up earlier that I think is interesting because I was always, and I think we've talked about this on the show, I'm always steroid guys should be in the Hall of Fame. We just saw Barry Bonds go into the Pirates Hall of Fame over the weekend. Mm-hmm. And he talked about, hey, I used to dream about being in the real thing. I don't have that dream anymore. And I think, look, everyone was doing steroids and still, despite, everyone doing it, A-Rod and Bonds, they were head and shoulders above everyone else. They were still great baseball players. We should still honor them. What Aaron Judge is doing is changing my mind on steroid users because I think we can't put the cat back in the bag, can't put it back in the bottle, the liquid back in the bottle, whatever the phrase is. Unfortunately, we can't unsee what we saw. And so we're, as much as we can in our heads compartmentalize and say, oh, Aaron Judge is doing this clean, and so it makes it even greater. We still saw what Bonds did. We still saw what A-Rod did. We still saw what McGuire and Sosa did. So it's almost like this is diluted because of that. If we had never seen anything like that, what Aaron Judge is doing right now would be even crazier. But it's almost like we've seen things like this already. So it's changing my opinion. It's like, wow, it took Aaron Judge doing what those guys had needed steroids to do to change my opinion. But now I'm like, wait, maybe we should be out on steroids. Maybe they should be banned because guess what? It's diluting what is one of the greatest runs you'll ever see by an athlete ever. I mean, it is stupid what he's doing. Any sport, any athlete, it doesn't exist like this. And it's crazy. It's different. It's not the NBA. It's a team sport. He's not an NFL quarterback. He doesn't control winning and losing. And unfortunately, in New York, he won't even be mentioned in the same conversation as Derek Jeter unless he wins at least 2 championships. I was talking to Ian O'Connor, who's been a New York Times bestselling author, 4-time bestselling author, been writing books and columns in New York and covering the local teams for 35 years, 40 years. And still, he says, like, look, the Yankees are a different standard. If he wins 1 championship with the Mets, he's immortalized forever. You win 1 championship with the Knicks or the Jets, you're immortalized forever. He needs multiple just to be in the same conversation as Jeter. And no one's even questioning Aaron Judge is a way better baseball player than Derek Jeter ever was, right? But that's just how it is. So, he doesn't impact winning. So unfortunately, maybe he won't. I don't know how history will remember him. But as far as clean players go, and we can only assume he's clean, it's the greatest clean player we've ever seen.
Yeah, it sounds wrong in some way to say that he's, better than Jeter. It just sounds weird coming out of people's mouths. But
I
at this point,
yesterday at Yankee Stadium, when they did the Old Timers Day, and Jeter runs out there, and the crowd still chanting Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter will be the most he's the most beloved athlete of my lifetime. He will be the most beloved athlete in the city because he won, and he won, and he won, and he won, and all he talked about and all he cared about was winning. And you know what? When they asked him yesterday about the 2024 Yankees, he said, if they don't win the World Series, it's a failure. He said 162 doesn't matter. He still says the same things, and he's not even on the team. He's not associated with the team. You got to love Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter's the best. And by the way, he's 6th all time in hits. Like, that's got to be worth something. You know what I mean? Like, right. Let's not forget, he also is a great player. It's not just the winning, because he had some incredible teams around him. He was a great player, and he was clutch, and he was right in the middle of all of it, and he was the face of it. So, Derek Jeter is my favorite athlete ever. But what Aaron Judge is doing, I mean, it sucks that I just hope he wins.
All right. Lock of the week. You want to?
I got a lock, and it's someone that I mentioned already as my lock of the week a couple weeks ago, but we didn't have one last week, and he wasn't even great 2 weeks ago, but last week he was great. So if you had him 2 weeks ago, I'm sorry, but last week he was awesome, and he's getting hot. And I know he's getting hot because he hit 2. I was working the Yankee game on Thursday, and he hit one of the most stupid home runs I've ever seen in my life. A slider down and away out of the strike zone, which has been the pitch that's gotten him every time throughout his career. And he hit it 425 feet dead center. That's Giancarlo Stanton. This is maybe as crazy as the things Aaron Judge is doing. The last 2 home runs that Giancarlo Stanton has hit, which were both on sliders out of the zone. One was down. The other one was down and away. Have been the craziest home runs I've ever seen hit, maybe. And he's going to Washington, where I think if he's not the leader, he's one of the leaders in most home runs in DC, in that ballpark, because of all the years he played in Miami, and he just went there and dominated them. I think his numbers in Citi Field, his numbers at Nationals Park, they're all ridiculous. In the division, 2 teams that were lesser teams in the division at the time that he was in Miami. So his numbers there are stupid. And then he comes back home to face the St. Louis pitching. And of course, it's not like Washington pitching is great. So I love this week upcoming for Giancarlo Stanton. So he is my lock of the week again. I think he's hot.
Okay. I like it. I'm a fan of it. You unfortunately took one of mine earlier, and so I'll say who I originally had. I originally had put Crow-Armstrong as my lock of the week, baby. And
wow, you didn't even let on at all when I mentioned it.
I know, because I'm like, oh, do I try to change it? And there's another.
And
guy
then I also jumped right to Jorge Lopez from there, so we kind of shifted the conversation.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I was like, my MVP is Amaya, my lock is PCA. There was a stat. I was watching the Cubs 2 days ago, and I should have wrote down the stat, or at least taken a picture. I don't remember what it was, but PCA and Miguel Amaya as the 8-9 hitters for the Cubs, they've been the best 8-9 combo in all of MLB. I want to say for the month of August, whether
So
it's,
the
run.
marquee TV crew coming up with the big time stats, huh?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks to Boog and JD and all the producers. I don't know who comes up with that,
No
but
idea. I just know
PCA,
they're
they were
marquee out there.
he's been really good. And anyone who's been watching the Cubs, especially in July, August, they'll tell you before his surface numbers started to catch up, he was putting together some phenomenal at bats. I think this is just finally starting to catch up, right? He's doing everything right, and now the surface numbers are starting to catch up. If you look at his underlying stuff, it looks fine. His EV is pretty solid, just under 90 miles an hour. He doesn't strike out a whole lot. And just over the last week, he was the 26th best fantasy player. So again, you come into the year and you think, we thought, okay, this is like Corbin Carroll light. And he had a really bad first half of the season. There's no denying that. But he's certainly picked it up. And you can't just forget about comps like that. I think this is a potential really good buy low opportunity, or if you're in a dynasty or something like that. I immediately thought of Jackson Churio, right? These guys can't just come onto the scene and blow it up all the time. Churio did not, right? But his July and August were phenomenal, and he's clearly solidified himself. So not everybody's just going to come up and set the world on fire. I think PCA is potentially, going to take another step here soon. I think he's going to finish out the year strong. So he's a lock. And I will also mention Lourdes Gurriel Jr. is another one who has really put it together over the last week. Certainly should be in everyone's lineup, lock and loaded. I don't know what it is about him. Is he like a playoff kind of guy? He seems to really
Yes.
pick it up when the moment matters. And I would love to have him on my team right now. I think this is the perfect time to keep him in your lineup.
Yeah, by the way, Ketel Marte, I don't know if we talked about that injury.
No.
We may have last episode, but right after I drafted him in that dumb best ball draft that we did, and then I look up at the screen I'm working one of the shifts at WFN, and I look up at MLB Network in the studio, and I'm like, he's on a 15-day IL now with like a hand or something, whatever it is.
Ankle. Yeah.
Ankle. Well,
he's supposed to begin running soon.
Yeah, get well soon,
see.
Ketel, please.
Yeah. Does
All
that
right.
mean your season's over for our draft?
No, it's not. I'm sure I'm doing fine.
I haven't looked.
We'll look it up. We'll update it on next episode.
All right, sounds good.
All right. Until next time. Until then, like, subscribe, share the podcast with a friend. I appreciate you all for listening. See ya.